Hello and welcome to the Scuttlebutt Podcast. I'm your host, Brock Briggs, and each week I bring you a conversation with an interesting veteran. It'll make you laugh, it'll make you cry, and everywhere in between. I've had several people recently ask me who my target audience is for this show, and honestly, I'm still figuring that out. I enjoyed listening to and learning from new people, and this is more an exploration of the guest's unique knowledge rather than only talking about a specific subject. There's lots in this world to learn, and I can't be confined to a single subject, which brings us to today. I'm talking to Christian Ruf, a former Army helicopter pilot and now operating a home services business. We talk about what we can take from aviation and how to apply that in our lives. We talk about why ETA or entrepreneurship through acquisition may not be as sexy as most make it out to be. And we talk about an interesting business he's starting, Jumbo Mail, a new take on direct mail. This is not all I can bring you today, though. Every Saturday, I write a free weekly newsletter with content recommendations, episode deep dives, and the occasional meme. A few weeks back, I presented some research on why VA Disability Priority Group 1 has risen almost 3x as fast as the veteran population over the last 20 years. And it's all free. You can check it out at scuttlebuttpodcast.co. There you can find the link to the newsletter, as well as the YouTube channel, episode transcripts, and more to keep learning. Enjoy this conversation with Christian Ruf. Christian, I think the best place for us to start today is for you to recount the story of your pinned tweet. I was kind of on the edge of my seat reading this story. You had me at hot yoga and Iranian missiles and Iraq all in the same sentence. So
I gotta open with a good, if I was gonna write a book, I guess that'd be the opening line. Really grabs
it's a great hook.
Reader. Yeah.
Great hook.
Where do you want to start?
May as well start from the beginning with that kind of context.
This was it was December of 2019. Right before COVID, and my wife was a month pregnant. We just had everybody to our house for Christmas, which was a complete disaster. And I was like, I finally got a break, and I was like, all right, I'm going to hot yoga. Flying a lot, I had a lot of lower back pains. I go to a hot yoga class, and so I'm walking into it on New Year's Eve 2019. And thinking to myself, like, I'm gonna leave my phone and my watch in the car, because this hot yoga studio, they don't like you doing that, but I always do it because in the 160th, if you get a text message that has a certain like combinations of numbers and letters, what have you, you gotta go. Something's happening. And I'm walking in, I'm looking down on my watch, I'm like, yeah, maybe I'll take it off, and all of a sudden it starts going off. Like, you could like, I feel like every time I tell a story, I'm making it up, but it starts going off, the numbers show up, and I'm like, okay, like, let's go. And I was not on call, but when you get those numbers, you have to go up to the compound, get everybody out the door. And so I go home, tell my wife, hey, I got to go in. And she's like, but you're not on call, right? And I was like, no, I'm not on call throughout the pregnancy. I'm staying. And sure enough, I get in there and my commander comes to me, and because I was a fully mission qualified aviator, he's like, all right, you're going, Ruf, let's go. And I'm like, oh, okay. And so I called my wife. I say, so I need you to pack my bags and bring them to me. I'm leaving. And I don't know where, and I can't tell you how long for. And then, she comes, brings them up. We go have lunch at Chick-fil-A off the side of the highway. And within 12 hours, I'm in Iraq. Right about that time, we get off the plane, bringing the aircraft out, and they had done the hit on the Iranian general that was leading the militia in Iraq, and things transpired. And all of a sudden, I find myself at the base that got targeted with those missiles. And throughout all that, just wondering, like, what's going to happen? Like, we're about to go into like full on war. Am I coming back? What's happening? And history shows itself, and it didn't happen. And it was like it was a pretty miserable 60 days. And so finally start going home, and I'm wondering, man, am I gonna make it, like, I'm gonna make it back in time, but can I make it back in time for yoga and hit up a yoga class before I head to Charleston and drive to Hilton Head to see my wife? And sure enough, I do. And so we land, C-17 lands early in the morning. I hop in my little station wagon, drive the hour back to Nashville, and walk into the first yoga class. And realize in that moment that I don't have my mat. I'd left my mat, I think it was at the compound still. And I go to the lady, I was like, hey, like, I left my mat. I'm a member here. Can I just borrow a mat for the session? And she's like, yeah, that'll be $10. And I'm just thinking to myself, like, do I tell her what just happened? Like, do I tell her I literally just in between classes, spent 60 days in Iraq? And I'm just like, oh no, I'll just eat this one. So, came full circle, ended back in the yoga studio, paid for the mats, and then, just went on with my life.
One of the tweets that you had in that thread that I thought was really profound, you said, we're capable of beating the odds, even if our environments or self-proclaimed limitations say we can't.
So that happened during the commotion of the incoming attacks. We were trying to get everybody out, and I flew a gunship, which is designed to carry more ammo and fuel, and just ammo and fuel, than like a standard Apache is. And they came to me and like, all right, you're going to go escort these aircraft, 8 other aircraft, over to this other place as the lonely gunship. And I'm like, okay, great. Alone and unafraid. Here we go. And like, oh, and by the way, we need you to put 5 people in the back. And I was just thinking, like, that's like, there's no way, like if I will overgross the aircraft by at least 2,000 pounds, which is a limitation on the structure of the airframe, and also like what the environment will allow me to take off and land in. And like, I didn't have a choice. We had to get those people out. And so I threw them in the back. I said, hold on, boys. And we started taking off. And I've got this co-pilot with me who's really bright younger pilot, like totally capable. This is his first deployment. Here we're taking off in this overweight aircraft that like really shouldn't be able to take off. And we do, and we start moving along the runway. And then all of a sudden the lead pilot, who's 7 aircraft in front of us, realizes doors open and needs to do an emergency landing. And so I have 7 aircraft in me coming to like a screeching halt. And it's like, it's like driving a Ferrari around the tracks and trying to stop with no brakes. You don't. And so I just start pulling the guts out of the thing. And there's like a computer announcer in the aircraft that tells you when you're using too much power or you don't have enough power for a situation. It just starts screaming at me. I think the crew chiefs in the back are like, saying their, final prayers, and my co-pilot's sitting there, like doing the best he can. And aircraft is not wanting to go. And we keep just like slugging along, and we see the ground come pretty close to us. And we just kept pushing, and things kind of shudder along, and we get through it. And all of a sudden we're flying again. And I'm just like, okay, like that was not supposed to happen. The environment, the aircraft, everything told me on paper, that should not happen. And it did. And maybe we got a nice breeze, and it did. But I just kind of taken that now and thinking, like, people can tell you're not capable of something. A situation can tell you that you're not capable of it, can hinder your confidence. But like what I took away from that is, like, if you just push and your persistence, the worst thing that happens is you fail. And failure is a much better option than quitting.
It's interesting circumstances like that where you're, as a pilot, you're fighting like pure physics. You're not fighting something internal. Like this is pure science of what this aircraft can hold and whatnot. And sometimes those forces of physics are felt like internally, kind of like it feels like we're fighting against something inside of ourselves that is like just physically not possible for us to do. But the reality is like there is a much deeper layer there that needs to
Yeah.
kind of be unlocked within ourselves. There may not have been many more layers on your aircraft that they
No, that
could
was
have like
great.
dug into, but
Yeah.
internally we have more than we think.
Yeah. That, and honestly, that situation was a huge confidence booster for me. In that moment, like I'd been working years to get to that judgment skill level of a aviator, and that kind of showed me that, like, okay, I really can trust my abilities. So yeah, we made it.
This question is normally something that I open with, and I bring it up right now because it may be this moment. But what is something that you are the most proud of?
In military or in life in general?
You could do both if they're different.
I developed a real love for my guys, and some of the comments that they made when I was leaving made me feel or realize that my intuition to lead with like kindness and empathy rather than sharp decision making or just like authority, it made me realize that like I'd done the right thing as far as my leadership style, and I've taken that now into the the real world, if you will. And yeah, I just think back to some of the comments that they made, and just reassuring that I did the right thing.
It's interesting as a young man watching motivational war movies and playing video games and doing all of these things. I think it's embedded into us that the act of leadership is generally this heroic,
Yeah.
valiant thing, this valiant
Yeah.
act of you taking a bullet for your comrades or whatever. But the reality is that those circumstances are very, very few and far between.
Yeah.
And what a more practical application of leadership looks like is, as you mentioned, a love and deep care for the people that are under you and acting in a way that supports that love and care.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, like I think if you asked me what was the most impactful thing that I did in my time in the 160th, I would say when we were getting an emergency resupply from the States, I had my wife send over boxes of Chick-fil-A sauce. And it just so happened coincided that we were like running out of food and all we had was hot dogs and no buns. And the Chick-fil-A sauce was a great condiment to dip it all in. So like
That level of
yeah,
creativity when you are deployed really goes a long way when you
yeah.
can have kind of some foresight and think about those things that might
Yeah, like okay,
help.
maybe I didn't get evaluated on that, but everybody was pretty happy in the moment. So
Right. I think that that's honestly something that I've seen very common in squadron level work. I'm guessing that the Army's layout is a little bit different,
yeah,
but in
yeah,
the Navy, I worked in aviation, but I worked at the intermediate level where we're working on individual parts and components, not the organizational level where it's the actual
okay, yeah,
aircraft and the handlers and maintainers, I guess you would say,
yeah,
crew chiefs on your guys' side.
yeah,
The bond scene within like the squadron level was unbelievable,
yeah,
and
yeah,
the amount of times even on deployment that the pilots would come back and bring pizza for their guys, or they'd like go run their laundry to shore when like the ship laundry
yeah,
was backed up or something. It just a level of connection that I don't think that I ever experienced or felt elsewhere in the
yeah.
Navy.
I would say my favorite experience in the 10 years of flying was when I was in the 160th. It was actually right before that deployment, and we'd just been hammered the year prior with deployments and training and deployments and training. And then all of a sudden I saw this week on the calendar where there wasn't a lot going on. So we're based near Nashville, Fort Campbell, and my wife's family has a big resort and brewery over in Knoxville. And so I took 3 aircraft, we filled them with all the dudes. And then we flew to Knoxville for the day. Her family came, picked us up, brought us to the brewery, brought all the barbecue from the restaurants. And yeah, we just hung out at the brewery and had barbecue, and then we flew back, and like, was that the best use of training dollars and flight hours? No, but everybody just had like, it stands out as my favorite memory. So
If you had to take the lessons from that and try to teach that to somebody, how do you think you would do that?
ooh, good question. Like, I think in the business world, I worked in a business that it was a business that I was actually trying to acquire. And so I asked the owner, I was like, when's the last time you took everybody to lunch? Like, do you guys do stuff like that? And he's like, yeah, once a year we do like a paid half afternoon. And they come to my house and we go out on the lake. And this was it was a construction business. And I'm just thinking like, wait, so once a year you get everybody together? Like, what are you doing the rest of the year? And so I started, because the plan was for me to buy the business, I started every Friday morning bringing donuts. And you would have thought I was like changing the world for them. Like, they now had something they were looking forward to, and like a reason for everybody to come into the shop at the same time, other than to be like barked at to like, hey, this is where you're going next. And I guess the lesson I would try to teach is like, it doesn't have to be something that's huge, that costs a lot of money, that takes a lot of time, that causes a major shift in revenue, but like little consistent sprinklings of some level of empathy and a reason to get people together goes a long way in business. I see that time and time again. Businesses touting like we're family or whatever. And it's like, people don't want to hear that, but they do want to be treated that way. So yeah, I guess the lesson I would say is like, it's little things. It's a couple boxes of donuts and coffee every week, and like a 15-minute session to just kind of let people BS and reflect before they get out. Or if they just want to stand outside and smoke cigarettes with each other, like, great. I don't think that's the most concise way to articulate that lesson, but that's just how I've seen it lacking or done in the real world.
Is there something about your upbringing that made that kind of natural or innate to you? I was curious when learning about you that and saw that you went to a prep school prior to joining ROTC, and I thought that was really unique. And I'm curious about that transition from those two different environments. But was there anything specific, maybe other than that?
Yeah, I was actually gonna say my fraternity life, but when you made the comment of the prep school, it really started then. So the school I went to in New Jersey was designed such that as a sophomore and a junior, you live in a house, like a real house, with 20 other guys. And what ends up happening is you then start eating together, all your meals at the dining hall. It's kind of like cliquey, of doing everything together, but you create that bond where, like, okay, yeah, you're going to classes for a couple hours a day and you have sports, but you come back to like a sense of family because you've got 20 dudes around you. And every Saturday night, a parent of one of the guys would sponsor we called it a feed, but it was basically they'd buy a bunch of pizza or wings or whatever. And so everybody, we would, back when you can get Netflix on DVDs mailed, we would do, we would eat a bunch of pizza, and we would every Saturday night rent like the worst movie, and we would just call it like shitty movie of the week. And we would just sit there and ridicule a movie for a couple hours. And I lost my father when I was in high school, so that really became like my family for better or worse. And then similarly, I had the same experience in college. So yeah, I think it stems from that.
It's also intriguing to me that you mentioned being a part of a fraternity in college and then went on to join kind of the ultimate fraternity. And that is like the military is kind of a fraternity on steroids, and a connection that probably lasts equally, if not longer than probably the college fraternity.
The college one, they're texting me right now. Like those guys and that we talk pretty much every day. But yeah, just going, and maybe that's why my transition was so difficult, is that I went from setting after setting after setting of that type of environment to like, here's your cubicle, now go crank out some Excel spreadsheets, and that didn't work.
You were even mentioning before we started recording about the difficulty that you had with the transition. I'm sure that the jump from that very kind of structured, I don't want to say like the joke of like mandatory fun, but it's like kind of mandatory bonding a bit in the military. When you're no longer forced into that, it's extremely lonely and you're kind
Yeah.
of off on your own. What have you found is helpful to maybe combat that?
Yeah, it's been a huge challenge for me. For the first time in my life, I had to make friends outside of a community that I was already a part of, like in high school, college, and in the military. It was basically forced. And the 160th, that's a whole nother beast, because I spend more time with those guys than I did my wife. Always being gone, always on the road, flying, forced into, put into situations where that type of thing mattered. And now that's like not present. And I know we'll talk about jumbo mailers later, but really that has been for me a massive shift in my, I don't know if happiness is the word, but like content with what I'm doing. I have like I got other guys that I'm working with. We share this vision for it, and we're executing on it daily. And it's a lot of fun. And slowly we're really getting into each other's personal lives, just because we're like really sharing a strong experience together. So yeah, it's been difficult, and I'm still struggling to find something to scratch that itch. Another one is it's kind of this underground workout group. It's in most major cities. It's called F3. I forget what it stands for right now, but I got invited to that. And you wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning, you go work out for an hour together outside, and that's been huge. And like today, I missed it because my daughter was sick. And but say it's like probably one of the highlights of my week. There's a common theme there of like doing hard, uncomfortable, miserable things with other people and getting a great sense of enjoyment out of it. Whether it's waking up at 4 o'clock in the morning to go work out, or like working until 2 o'clock at night to try to send out some jumbo mailers for a power washing company in Westchester, New York. So
It certainly builds bonds like no others,
yeah.
that's for sure.
So yeah.
I think that that sense of like community is extremely empowering and necessary when you're transitioning out. And I know that I certainly found it difficult to find those people for
Yeah.
myself. And I think that one of the places that I regularly turn to, there's lots of veteran nonprofits and VSOs and all of these other
Yeah.
things, but I find myself regularly recommending that people find their place on the internet.
Yeah.
And there
Twitter.
is a community of people who are interested and down to talk about whatever you want to talk about.
Yeah.
You just need to find where they live. And I have
Yeah.
kind of like,
Twitter.
at several points, maybe even gotten in the way of my relationship with my wife. She's like, "Why the hell do you spend so much time on Twitter?" And I'm like,
I
"These
know,
are
I
where
know.
all my friends are." Like, I don't
I
know
was,
what to say.
I was going through that this morning. My wife's like, "Are you on Twitter again?" I was like, Grace, I've literally started a business off of Twitter. I am going on a trip to Utah with people I met off of Twitter. Like, yes, I am on Twitter. So all of my clients are from Twitter.
One of the other things that you had talked about in the difficulty of transition is the idea that you would need to like go and take a traditional corporate job or get into a really structured job right after the military.
Yeah.
Why is that incorrect?
Well, on a high level, there's just a lot of opportunities for people who are not necessarily, it doesn't even have to be intelligent, but can make decisions, stick with them, and execute on them to succeed in business. And whether that's starting something or buying something or partnering with a more successful or an already successful entrepreneur. I know ETA is very popular right now, and I went down that rabbit hole and I've had success insofar as like I had a business to buy, but we decided to move. And then I found another business to buy, but I decided it wasn't the right fit. So, and now I'm starting a business from zero, and everything that I'm doing comes back to the very basic principles that the military instills in all service members of, loyalty, dedication, like execution, making decisions and acting on them. And for me, it was a lack of self-confidence in what I was getting out. Self-confidence and awareness that I can go do this on the outside. And it took me basically up until this past January to actually act on it and realize it almost simultaneously. The original question was like, I've gone down to the rabbit hole. The original question was like, what are the opportunities? Like, they're everywhere. Yeah, for me, it was just a lack of self-confidence and awareness that seemed to shift from when I was leaving a very strong, tight-knit community to not having that at all. And now I have people that chime in and offer suggestions on like a way to, I just got a DM from somebody who I've been working with. He's like, hey, you should really think about this as part of your service offering. And I was like, yeah, that's absolutely right. And I know that even without really knowing this person, that he has my best interest in mind and has, invested in my success. It's really unlimited, man. Like I think about the business that I've started right now, and it was because I had the confidence to try something, and that was all I needed. So if there's an opportunity out there to get service members that are transitioning and wondering what to do, sky's the limit.
One of the things that popped out at me that you said is lacking the confidence to like make a decision or like to kind of act on something. One of the things the military does really, really well is it empowers you to make decisions within your realm. Like you have a very defined area or like lateral limit, as some people in the military talk about. That wasn't a Navy thing. That was something I picked up from a Marine. But these are the limits of where you can make decisions. And basically anything in that kind of right to wrong, you can own it. When you're out, it's this 360 degree lateral. There really isn't a limit about what you can make a decision on. And it's unbelievably overwhelming to move or act on anything.
Yeah. And maybe that's why I have 81 domains, is because I have all these ideas, and I was like, oh, all these decisions to make, which do I do and which do I go with? And then I chose one that I had used and employed, and I was like, great, I'm going to do it now. I was just sitting around, and I was, it's that time of year where you do New Year's resolutions. And while I don't really believe in New Year's resolutions are great, but I also just like having annual goals and quarterly goals in general. And I was looking back at the last year, and I was like, what did I accomplish? And I was like, I don't know, because I didn't really set anything, which is unlike me. And I was like, well, great. Now I'm going to choose something. I'm going to do it. And almost serendipitously, I saw this, this thread that resonated with me, and I was like, great, let's go. And that's how I started.
There's like a couple different levels of procrastination. I think I haven't totally figured this out yet, but there's kind of like an oblivious level where you're not really sure what you don't know. But then there's this kind of level that I've found myself in the last couple of years, which is like one step above that. I know what I should be doing kind of, but am not acting on it in a way that is aggressive enough. And I've seen a couple ways to describe it, but a guy that I recently have been learning about, his name is Anand Sawal, or I'm going to butcher that last name, but he's the founder of this company called CB Insights, and he calls it intellectual masturbation. And it's just this kind of like like this idea of planning and just like getting the landing page and like
Yes.
getting all of these ideas
Yeah.
going
Yeah.
and just
Yeah.
brainstorming the
Yes.
business model. And it's just, it's,
Yes. Just go do
it's
it.
advanced procrastination
It is advanced
is what it is.
procrastination. Yes. And like I suffered that when I was still in Nashville and I was working I was working for a healthcare company. I was like, I'm going to open a painting business. I like painting. I want to do something on the side. So I got the LLC and I got the website and I figured out the logo and the business cards, and then I never did anything with it. And so with this new one, I was like, great, let's go. And so I built a website in 15 minutes. I had a buddy do an AI generated logo in about 5 minutes. I think he actually chose the name, and then I started selling it. And like now I'm trying to figure out like everything else involved with it. And like it's been amazing. And it's just execution.
It's like we're pushing down the road. The hardest part about it is whether it's selling something, whether it's, I want to start a newsletter, like why don't you write something first and then worry about the other stuff.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's so hard to do. It is
Yeah.
unbelievably difficult to actually just like do the thing and not worry about the other stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. You do not need an LLC to start a business or a website.
But keep an eye on the IRS if they're watching those $600 Venmo payments now.
Yeah,
Like,
no, yeah, seriously, yeah. We have all that. We have all that stuff now, but yeah.
got a couple. Once you get a couple sales, like go and get your business set up and whatnot. But action first, and kind of do the pretty stuff later. How did you end up working in PE?
So I'm an operator on behalf of a private equity firm. They bought a business in New Jersey that is concierge home maintenance, which was similar to a business that I tried to buy in Nashville. And we had decided to move instead of buy that business in Nashville just to be closer to family. And I just got connected to them and they said, hey, do you want to do it in Hilton Head? And I was like, yeah, sure, I'll do it. And so I started that in August. And so that's like 6-7 months now, been running that. So my involvement with PE is limited to the I'm operating a business on their behalf.
I'm sure that while a little bit distant or maybe arm's length from the operations of the actual firm, there still requires and especially to operate a company, a large sense of strategic direction, the vision, all of those things. What do you think that you have learned operating that business that has surprised you?
Sell before everything else.
So exactly what we were just talking about.
Yeah, I spent the first 3 months. They had it like kind of designed where I'd focus on like the back end of it and setting up the systems and everything. And that's actually, we were just talking about it earlier of like, okay, what we should have done differently is day one, start selling, and then figure out how to manage the back end of it. Because the back end of it's super simple. The selling part's the hard part. It's very nichey, concierge home maintenance. So we maintain wealthy homeowners' homes, if it's their primary home, secondary home. So it's a very targeted type of clientele. And yeah, biggest lesson: sell.
You mentioned earlier that the ETA space is really attractive, and it absolutely is. I will confirm that ETA Twitter is alive and well and buzzing. Why do you think it is so attractive? Like, certainly the idea of running a small business is not a new thing, but for some reason the aspect of like, maybe it's the financial engineering of like buying the business is the exciting part. I think maybe some people who are excited about ETA may be kind of delusioned about like what the realities of operating a small business is.
Yeah, operating's hard, but I'll tell you, 0 to 1 is pretty difficult. Starting a business from 0 and getting it to 1 is even with what I'm doing, both in like starting this concierge home maintenance business from 0 and getting it to 1, and also starting the jumbo mailer thing and getting it to 1. It's hard. It's very hard. So if you can come in on a business that's running and maybe has like a 25% solution on systems, or is already generating enough income to pay for its employees, and then you can kind of tweak the things. It's it's similar to like going from taking command of a squadron or a platoon, like things already going. Now you're just the new figurehead. And while you can influence its efficiency and the achievements they have, like you're walking into something that will probably just run, even if you're like still just trying to figure it out.
I've had several people on in the past talking about like the financial end of like acquiring a business. I'd like to talk to you about kind of like the operational end, and
Yeah.
like maybe it would be good to start out with knowing how to know whether you're right to do that. Like, I think that on the surface, especially me coming from a finance background, I maybe have a little bit of an inflated ego about, oh, just the margins are this, we'll drive them to this. Like, it's in reality much more difficult. How do you know if you're right for ETA?
Well, I think it depends what industry you go to, but at least in the industry that I operate right now, are you ready to get a phone call at 11 o'clock at night with your single and only employee crying because his, ex-wife won't let him see his son and he doesn't have any money, and the place he's staying at is up in 30 days, and now you need to try to figure out a way to find a new place for him to live in?
It sounds like you're definitely not speaking from personal
No,
experience.
definitely not. No, I mean that's like, yeah, that's it. Like getting customer calls and like going and changing Dorothy's dryer vent filter because she can't figure it out to work. That's the easy part. Or like right now we're renovating my father-in-law's restaurant, and that's, it's construction. So it's always like, there's always challenges, but yeah, then the hard part is like, do you have the empathy to step in and take care of people who you really don't have much of a personal relationship to, but they need you just as much as you need them? Like I don't have a finance background, so I can't speak intelligently on that. But if you're going and acquiring a $4 million a year dumpster business, like there's a good chance like you'll probably be okay if you don't mess things up too much. But it's the if you haven't led people and dealt with the emotions of leading people, it's a challenge.
See a lot of former military officers going into this space, and I think rightfully so. You're talking about, what I'm hearing you say is like your ability and capacity to handle people
Yeah.
in a way, which is kind of uh, in a sense like what you do in the military. If you're responsible for people, you get to handle those calls from your junior troops that are in jail or like have just
Yep.
done stupid things beyond belief, and
Yeah.
I don't, maybe they make great fits for this.
Yeah. I mean, like, I guess another thing is, and like, I'm actually experiencing this, the ability, you'll have to have the ability to not only make decisions for yourself, but for your people too. Like, if you haven't had to lead other people, like in the military, it's easy because most people are trained to, if they can't make a decision, to come with options. If they're trained well, like, here's the problem, here's 3 potential options, this is what I recommend, and then the commander makes the decision. But in the real world, it's, here's the problem, and that's it. And whether it's a personal problem or a work related problem, getting to them to that point where they come with a problem and a couple solutions is a lot more difficult.
We were talking earlier about how our range of outcomes and things that we can do is much wider and broader as a civilian than it is in the military. I think the range of potential things that you can do is also extremely large to match that same kind of opportunity set. There are many things that in the military, there's only so many responses that you can take to this one action. Here, we can do a lot of things.
You can, yes. Yeah, I love that analogy, man. Like the 360, that's great. How actually it helps put a lot of things into perspective.
Do you think that it's good to try to establish like a SOP, or I hate that I even just said that, but like establish kind of the rules by which that you're going to operate in, whether it's like going into a job, maybe you're going into ETA, maybe it is something else. Do you think that that is helpful, or is it better to keep your options open?
I think it's helpful to be aware of what your options are. And then I think it's even more helpful to look out and see what your end state is and what that end state looks like. So for me, it's, I want to be in a position where I can take my daughter to school every day if I want, and I can go travel and work as much as I want to or as I don't want to. And I have the personality that I love to work. So I want to be doing something I really enjoy. So now that you've realized like all the available options, pick what you think aligns with that end state and go after it. Like set the tone for the person that you want to continue to be or be. Like I'm working on, I guess, adjusting my tone or my personal motivators and just go act on it. Like back to like, I have 81 domains. Yeah, I have 81 domains. Like it does not make sense for me to try to do something with all of them, but I have all these options, and now I'm going after the one that like I have a lot of enjoyment in. It gets me towards my end states, and it brings a sense of fulfillment to me.
You said that you love to work. Do you think that that's a good thing? And I only ask this because I also feel the same. And if you were to ask my wife, you'd probably think it was a bad thing. And so
Yeah, same
I'm
thing.
curious.
Yes, if you got Grace on the call here, she's like the other day, she's like, "You're a workaholic," and I was like, I know I am. So it's a good thing, it's a bad thing, right? It's a blend. So her uncle, my wife's uncle, is a very talented, successful restaurant entrepreneur. And he started Ruby Tuesdays, like the chain, built it, and then did some other things. And I was on a call with him the other day, and it's a Saturday, and he's just like typing away. He's doing some spreadsheet for me. And he's like, "You know what, Christian? Some people play golf, some people play tennis, some people like to ski. I like to work. I just like to do it." And I'm like, I don't hide anymore. He's in his 70s. So like, I enjoy working, and it's okay. And that got me thinking. I was like, yeah, it is okay. Where it's not okay is when it gets in the way of everything else. It's just like everything. Like I could really like to mountain bike, and I do really like to mountain bike, but I won't go mountain biking if my daughter wants me to take her to the beach. And I have had a hard time, and I'm really working at creating that barrier between my obsession to work and like family. Whether that means like I come home at like 5 every day, and I put my phone like upside down. I put my personal phone upside down the counter. I have to keep my work one on in case a client calls, but I try to create that separation. And just for those couple hours, I'm trying to be as present as I can with her, and then she goes to bed. And if my wife and I decide we want to like watch a show, whatever we do, if she wants to watch like whatever series she is, and I'm like, I gotta do some like data analysis for these mailers, I go do that. So I don't think that wanting to work a lot is a bad thing. I think that not having a way to separate yourself from it, like anything else, is. It's particularly difficult right now trying to start something. It's exhausting, but it's also a lot of fun. It's also an incredible amount of fun.
I think that that is a tremendous challenge, starting something from scratch, not only while you're working, but then also in light of the conversation that we're having right now, talking about your family. If you're working like 9 to 5 at your regular corporate job or whatever, normally the time that you'd be working on your startup is maybe 5 to 9 in the evening or whatever, but that's family time. So then you start to see the sleep wane a little bit, and maybe the diet not as good. And
well, the two hacks I've had to this is we moved from like a single family home in Nashville that had a yard and beautiful landscaping to a like apartment villa in an HOA where I don't have to do any landscaping. I don't have to do any lawn care. And by the way, my in-laws own 4 restaurants that are within a 5-minute drive of our house. So I don't have to I don't have to do any chores. I had to pay for it. And we just run to the restaurants whenever we want to grab food. So like I've figured out a way to like introduce a little bit more time, but yeah, definitely, it's definitely a hack.
This is like all resonating so hard. I have had this conversation with my wife several times. We bought the house that we're in. This was our first home purchase a year or two ago. And while I have really enjoyed having the best looking lawn in the neighborhood and
Yes.
learning, I'm not a handy or like a maintenance person. I really enjoy working with my mind, not my hands.
Yeah.
But it's been a good, fulfilling challenge
Yes.
to work on those things.
Yes.
And as we're talking about her getting out of the Navy, we've talked about where we want to live. And I'm like, I wouldn't fight it if we want to move to an apartment. Like,
Yeah.
I really wouldn't. The money we'll save, we'll put that into retirement or go buy a rental or a couple of
Yeah.
REITs or something.
Yep.
And
Yep.
there's an unbelievable amount of time that is
Yes.
required to maintain a home.
It is. Yes, it is. And that's why concierge home maintenance is such a good thing, because some people just don't want to do it at all. But yeah, no, that it has been a huge help. It has been a huge help.
If we're going to talk about jumbo mailers, we need to start with the origin of this idea. Not that direct mail is something that's new, but where did you source the idea that you needed to start this thing?
Twitter. I was looking for a way to market my home service business, and a guy on Twitter, John Matzner, did a post about sending letters with golf balls inside of bubble mailers to business owners for like to try to find businesses to buy. And I thought, wow, I should just do that for the customers I'm trying to acquire. And so I did that. I found there's a community near me. It's on a golf course, super wealthy homes. So I got some data, figured out all the names, addresses, yada yada, and I sent them handwritten notes with golf tees and covet and custom divot fixtures inside to try to elicit a response. And my biggest mistake was not putting an offer inside. I just wrote a note that said, we'll fix, you fix your divots, we'll fix your home. And then I gave our offerings. And what happened was, of the 400 that I sent them the same day that I launched my website. And within 3 days, my website traffic, with like really no SEO, no Google My Business page, went from 11 to 160. Like I didn't have a good, like our website didn't have a good like lead capture on it. And I got some calls. I got like 2 or 3 calls out of 400, which is so close to 1%. But these calls that came in, they're $35,000 yearly contracts or $250,000 like lifetime value of a customer. So it like well covered the cost of sending 400 of these out. And I shared it with the other guys who are kind of in my cohort of doing this, and they were like, yeah, it seems like a great idea. And then on December 28th, mobile home park guy, another a Twitter guy, did a thread on, if you want to start a business, someone should do this. And he outlined how you would create a chunky mailer business. And I was like, yeah, somebody should do that, because I'm so sick of having to stuff these things myself. And I would just pay for the convenience for someone to send them out on my behalf. And then I realized that I should be that person. And that same night, I bought several domains. I went with jumbo mailers. I created a card website in like 15 minutes. And I messaged him. I said, all right, it's on, let's do it. And I think I just started talking about it on Twitter, sending it to people, and I started getting really positive feedback. And so I just kept going with it. And now we're 60 days in. Last week, we've closed probably about $30,000 in sales. And we did a test to get open rate, and we got 90%. And now we're doing a kind of a controlled test on response rate. And yeah, it's taken off.
That is absolutely wild. That is so cool, and such like a niche kind of idea. Is the idea of sending a like large piece of mail trying to elicit a response that they're not going to throw away the
Right.
packaging or that it
Yeah.
sticks out in their
Yeah.
stack of mail.
Everybody opens a package.
Got to
And so
find
what
out
I did,
it's
yeah, I sent 50 of them to friends and family before I like publicly said I was doing this. And so it was just it just looked like this metallic mailer with a label on it and a postcard on the inside. I wrote a note and said, "Hey, it's Christian. If you get this seems really dumb, but please take a picture and send it to me." And the only people who didn't send me a picture of it, we had the wrong addresses for. So everybody opened it.
huh.
Even my fraternity brothers who knew I was doing this, like they opened it and they're like, okay. Oh, you got me. And I was like, yeah, I know. Everybody opens a package. So
That is so cool. Who were the first people that you sold this to? You said you
home
did
serv- home
30,000
serv-
in sales in the first month,
yeah, first 45 days,
45 days.
home service businesses, realtors, car detail. I mean, a car detailing company in Minnesota, a pressure washing guy in New York City, a roofer in Colorado, a line striping company in Texas, pest control, a realtor in California, real estate private equity firm, a land buyer in New Jersey. I mean, like anyone who's trying to get a message to someone and wants to get out from behind the noise that is cold emails and, SEO. Yeah, it kind of apply. I mean, it's applying to industries all over the place.
I'd love to talk about costs if you don't mind me getting into that. Is that
Yeah,
okay?
yeah.
What does a service like this run? I'm assuming that you've got maybe tiers or different packages that you can offer. I'd love to hear about what the cost is to the customer, what it costs you, and then we can kind of take it from there.
Yeah, so the cost of the customer right now is $2.87. And
Per mailer.
a mailer. And we have one right now, we have one offering because we're just trying to hone like our, I guess, MVP, if you want to call it that. And so right now it's a 5x8 mailer with a double-sided 4x6 postcard in it. And the cost includes we'll design it, we'll print it, we'll find the addresses and the data for you based off of whatever demographics you're trying to go after. We'll process it and we ship it out. So it's all in $2.87. We've had some that fluctuate where they want to add like heavier, bulkier items in it, and then that just drives the size pricing and the postage pricing. But the competitive advantage is that we have a contract with the USPS that allows us to get postage for a fraction of the retail cost. So if you were to go do these on your own, it'd be $4 each in postage, and we have it down to less than $1.
Wow. How did you negotiate that?
It is a huge pain.
A lot of haggling.
A mobile home park guy in his thread said the most difficult part about this process will be getting this permit from the USPS. And I thought, how hard could it be? You just fill out a couple forms. It has been a huge pain, and it's still a huge pain. USPS is probably the most poorly run business in the world. And like you go to one clerk and they give you this rate for postage, you go to another clerk and they give you another. And luckily I made somebody really happy one day and we got a really good rate. So yeah.
Were there contractual agreements that you needed to like send X amount of products with them to secure that rate?
It's a minimum of 250. And so we set our minimum send is 400. We have a warehouse in Texas that does all of this. It's kind of coincides with the e-commerce business that my business partners have. At first it was my wife and I stuffing them, and then we got sick of I literally had 5,000 bubble mailers at my house at one given time, with another 5,000 on the way, and I diverted those to the warehouse when I realized that the only possible way to scale this is to have that element in place.
It's probably a really good sign for maybe early signs of product market fit when you're having to worry about scaling because of demand, like within 45 days. That's a really, really
like
good sign.
we had the conversation last week of getting a sales rep. And so
Wow.
we're getting a sales rep because I can't do it all anymore. Like last week, I was having 5 to 8 conversations a day with people who wanted to do it. I would say about 90% of the leads that come through the website turn into a phone call, and of that portion, 80% convert into clients. So that's pretty good. And it's all from Twitter. All of this is from Twitter. We have not had a single customer from outside Twitter yet. And so we just keep asking ourselves the question, what happens when people outside Twitter are aware of this offering? Because there is no one else in the United States doing this.
That's like I said, another really good sign when
Yeah,
nobody's doing
yeah.
something.
Or it's a really bad sign, right? Like it could have gone either way. But luckily for us right now, it's a good one.
What I didn't ask this before, but you said that it costs in the neighborhood of $2.80 per mailer for the
Yeah.
customer. What does the cost look like for you? What were you needing to like commit to with the e-commerce warehouse to like stand this up?
So what we needed to commit to them was a set price on fulfillment. So we pay them a set fee per item for fulfillment. I guess that's how most e-commerce works. And I shopped around, and luckily ended up being that mobile home park guy has an e-commerce business, and it just was a good fit for us to do it together. The cost for us is the margins are pretty low. But it's more of I think they're at like gross margins, I think are right now 48%. So not terrible, but I mean, it's really it's a volume game. And we, having created this in a home service startup and recognizing that home services are going to get a lot of value from this, we decided that the more value at a competitive price that we can provide is going to keep our customers happier in the long term. And we want to keep a customer for life rather than try to like make a huge amount off of like the first sale. And they're already seeing that value because of the response rates they're getting. And we're seeing the value because like the leads, people keep coming in. People are now referring their friends to us.
I mean, near 50% gross margins for a physical product is pretty wild. So I think that that's a good
Okay, good.
start.
I mean, I honestly, I'm used to selling services and labor, not like physical products. So great. So I'm learning every day. Sounds like I'm doing something right.
Well, I might somebody might annihilate me when they hear this, and maybe say that that's really bad. But in my head, I'm like, well, thinking about the infrastructure that's required for physical
Yeah.
products, and I know that like FBA stores and like e-commerce generally is like not anywhere near that. So,
Okay.
and this is like, I would probably put this in a similar basket where you're like having to outsource and like
Yeah.
3PL like services that
Yeah.
you're
It is.
having to
Yep.
use.
Well,
So
what may end up happening is us absorbing a larger warehouse. So like those margins may deteriorate. Yeah. I mean, right now, I mean, people pay $1. There's a company out there that does direct mail, just regular direct mail, that charges anywhere from $1.29 to $1.99 a postcard. And on top of that, they charge $200 to $1,000 a month just to use their service. And they work with home service companies. And I'm just thinking, you're doing this spray and pray method of just like sending to everybody in a community, and 80% of them might not be your ideal customer. You're spending all this money, and what type of return are you getting? And so we took the approach of, we don't do spray and pray. We're going to use data to find your ideal customer. Like if you say, I want to find every 55-year-old female lawyer that is single and has a dog and lives in a townhouse and has eyeglasses, we can find that. And if that's your ideal customer, if that's your avatar, like your message is only going to go to them. We're not going to end up sending it to the, 33-year-old couple that's expecting a new baby and they have contacts instead of glasses. That's where this gets fun. Working with home service companies or really anybody to figure out, okay, who is in fact your ideal customer and how can we target them and them only?
How and what kind of data are you using to help narrow that down?
There's all these different, it is freaky. There's all these different services out there. I know, like, so real estate investors use PropStream. We use a combination of data aggregators and real estate data through a variety. I think we have 4 different services right now that we subscribe to, and then we can overlay those parameters to reach that ideal customer.
One of the things that I think is interesting about this business too is obviously you've got a really good start on it, and thinking about the total addressable market. I mean, there's like the lead gen is something that has always been and will always be a really, really critical factor. And you're able to play your industry agnostic. And I think that the only thing that changes in lead gen over time is like what's in style for what works, whether it's Facebook advertising, maybe it's direct mail postcards, or this is kind of like another variation of that. That's super interesting.
I had to call this roofer on Saturday, and he said, I spend so much money on SEO and email campaigns and SMS texting, and hearing you guys do this is a breath of fresh air for something that I know that if I put $1 into this, I'm going to get $3, $4, $20 out of it. I can track the return. If it doesn't work, I know it's because I didn't send the right offer, or we weren't sending it to the right audience. And we kept talking. We talked for like an hour, and he's like, Christian, like, I know it's not sexy, but you are in a growth industry. I was like, I guess, like, yeah, email has a 17% open rate, and we have a 90, and it's mail.
Right, you're predating the newsletter here. People talk about their 50% open rate on their newsletter. Like this is the new subscription newsletter business.
Yeah,
right
I'm gonna do a newsletter, but it's gonna go to your home.
I love that. That's super exciting, and I imagine there's a lot of work to do in the early days here as you guys figure it out. But like I said before, those are good problems to have at this stage.
Good problems to have. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I want to kind of start to wind down the conversation with a funny and interesting topic. We need to figure out what you're going to do with smokedporkbutts.com. And maybe some of your other domains.
So of my 81, I think that's probably my favorite. And I think I was just one night just seeing if it was available, and it was available. And I was like, how has no one bought that? Like, it just from, I don't know anything about SEO, but it seems like from a website, a niche website creator's perspective, that would be a good one. So I've got it available. I would love to do it with someone. I don't have the time to. I don't know. What would you use it for? Recipes?
So when we first started talking, what my first idea is that you need to kind of go. My first like inkling of what I was thinking was all of the guys on TikTok that like do recipes. Like there's the cooking on the Blackstone guy.
Yeah.
Do you know who I'm talking about?
Yeah.
He's always does the weird little freaking dingy thing. He's kind of this older guy. He's like having a beer, just kind of being cool dad energy, whatever. So I thought of him. And then I also thought of this other old man who's got this big gray beard. These are all video format. And so, but I'll kind of like drop back. This old man who wears like overalls, big gray beard. And he's like got this super monotone voice. And he's just like, first you take this and then you add some salt and pepper. And it's like, it's always like just obscene amounts of whatever seasoning and shit is going on it. It's just like oh, 25 pounds of butter, like pouring it in there. Like it just is so obnoxious. I'll have to find one and send it to you. But one, he looks ridiculous. And so it's like kind of draws you in.
Yeah.
Two, his voice is like kind of annoying, but you're just like, why is he talking like that? Three, the overalls and what he's wearing. He also has this like a wrist guard that looks like it would put like 50 caliber bullets in it, but there's like hot sauces in it, and it's like all of these different sauces. Like this guy is a cooking machine
Is this
is
on
what he
TikTok?
is.
Is this on TikTok?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
So I think that is actually and that guy, he did some type of like, he has gotten really big or whatever, but he actually made his own sauce. And I think that's a product that you can buy now. I think that is the direction that you want to go though.
Okay.
Like either take submissions on like different recipes and then you just like show them cooking, or like everybody loves those like videos where you open the smoker and it's like the meat being cut up or whatever. Like it's kind of like a satisfying video to watch. So I think that there's a video angle to this that you're going to need to play. Maybe competitions for like best rubs, that would probably be really interesting. Like go buy like every single rub in like a Winco or whatever your local grocery store is, and then like buy 50 pork butts or something and just smoke all of them. Well, and then just do like a taste test.
So I do have a trailer smoker that I can do 20 on, so we can do 20.
There you go. Yeah, and if you're like, obviously that would be a lot of meat, and so you couldn't probably feasibly do that to yourself. But if you have like a single smoker, or maybe just use the trailer for that, but like go buy all the different rubs and then just start like a review channel, and then like do it, talk about, I know nothing about smoked anything. My dad is really good at smoking meat, but
you don't have a smoker yet?
No, I don't. If you're trying to pitch in, I do have a baby on the way. I'll put that on the register.
It's a dad move, man. You gotta like
I saw this really funny meme that there's two things that you can get into when you're like a dad. You can get into like World War II history or smoking meat. So that's the one to go.
Maybe that's the thing. It's smokedporkbutts.com, dad smoking meat.
There we go. Yeah, I think you got to do reviews of all the different rubs, do like a video a week. You're gonna have to commit to eating just so much smoked pork butt.
I don't have time. I have zero time, but yes, I'll add it to the, like going back to like, the 360, like I'm trying to choose my little lane right now to kind of like hone in on. And so the restaurant we're renovating, we are adding a smoker too. So maybe that'll be maybe I can tie that in somehow.
Yeah. Go to one of whoever the cooks is over at this thing, find a cook with like a really wild personality, and like either have them do it, like do a different one a week or whatever like that. And anyway, long game is like after you've tried 500 different rubs, then you launch your own. And then you'll have kind of the rapport and whatever. And that,
well, I do have one. My father-in-law, he used to have smokers in all of his restaurants, got rid of them, is not bringing him back. So that maybe that's it. All right.
That's the direction I would go.
Yeah.
What are you kind of thinking?
It's too early for me to quit jumbo mailers, but I mean, the like smoked pork I don't think it's going anywhere. So
it's definitely not.
You gotta get a smoker though. We're gonna change.
I know. I've been sleeping on the smoking thing. I think that's probably for a couple of reasons. One, just being like my wife will probably have 2 bites of it, and I will just like I'm part of like a veteran group thing, and we had a handful of people over at the house, and I did a big one in the crock pot because I don't have a smoker, which it turned out good. But then this whole big 20-pound thing, like, we didn't even eat half of it. And then I had half of it go to waste, and it just, can't be having that.
What I end up doing is whenever I smoke, I'll do a bunch, and then we just grab big tinfoil trays from the restaurants, whatever, and we'll make a big salad, or we'll make a big thing of macaroni and cheese or black eyed peas, and then we just bring them to all the families around us. We did that, especially in Nashville. We would do that because there's a lot of COVID babies on our street. So like everybody was our age and had a baby, and so we would just like distribute barbecue to everybody.
There you go. That's a nice neighborly thing to do.
That was nice.
Christian, this has been a ton of fun. I've really enjoyed chatting with you, getting to know you.
Me too.
If you had one piece of actionable advice for a service member or vet that we could go and implement in our lives today, what do you think that would be?
Yeah, if you have an idea that you have conviction on, just start.
Go make some sales.
Yeah, just start it. And like most businesses or ideas don't cost a lot to start on. Yeah, failure is so much better than quitting.
It sure can help guide your next decision, and you don't know until you try.
Yep. Yeah.
What can me and or the listeners do to be useful to you? You want to send them to social media, jumbo mailer?
I'm on Twitter. Twitter is the only one I'm on right now. And if you just search Christian Ruf, my handle is pinpulled DRMF. And yeah, that's that's where I'm spending a lot of my time recently.
And if you have the need for home services or jumbo mailing, reach out.
Yeah, come reach out to us if you want to send some and you don't have a use case for 400. I'll teach you how to do it and not spend $4 a piece on postage. Happy to do that.
Awesome. Christian, I really appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Thanks so much for tuning in today. Your listenership helps me better educate people like you and the rest of our nation's military, both past and present, on building a successful life outside of military service. If you're looking for more ways the top vets are leading more effective lifestyles, building businesses, and using the resources designed specifically for you, press here for a selection of some of the best clips. Be sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel to stay up to date, and I will be talking with you soon.